Lockout, the NFL lockout. A lot of people are discussing it. It's a huge damper on football fans everywhere. And what's going on is a lot of the fans hear the players' side and know that the players would not like to deal with a give back. But you being a former NFL executive, we don't hear much of that side. So where do they stand on the issue?
Well, obviously, when they put this deal together, both sides had an out that they could easily get out of if they wanted to. The players could have got out. The owners could have got out. And the owners chose to get out. And by getting out, they felt like they were not being able to best utilize. It wasn't a good deal for them based on cost rising all over the board in terms of the economic situation in America. So they got out, which was their right, which was the players' right. Now they're trying to renegotiate a new collective bargaining agreement based on different evidence, different tangible, and based on the system that they had before. So obviously the players enjoyed the system. It was helpful to the players. It was really beneficial to the players, and now the owners need to find a way to kind of justify and move forward and try to get a new collective bargaining agreement. Now we're in the courts, and they're going to hear it.
So, just asking you your personal opinion, do you think there will be football in 2011?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic there'll be football in 2011. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some litigation as we're going through. But once we get through a couple of these dates and move, one side gains leverage to the other side, I think we'll ultimately knock out an agreement.
I guess where would you say you stand if you had to be the arbitrator that they brought in? What would you say? What side would you be on?
I don't think an arbitrator can be on either side. I think ultimately it's cooler heads have to prevail. I think the President of the United States made the best statement. When you have $9.3 billion of revenue in a sport, you ought to figure out the best way to divvy it up. And I think that's ultimately the challenge that awaits everybody here. So I think it's really not about, what side. I think it's ultimately going to come down to picking out finding a way for both sides are happy. Maybe not completely happy, but find a way for a win-win for both sides.
Okay, well, moving on. You were here in Seattle just yesterday checking out Jake Locker. What did you think of his pro day?
Well, I thought Jake Locker was very athletic. He moved very well. He threw the ball 41 passes. He's completed 39 of them. But I still think it goes back to Jake Locker's tape, the way he played at Washington. I think it's going to be a critical component of how he's evaluated. And I think ultimately he's inconsistent. It's going to take him some time to develop into becoming a full-time player.
Do you think any of the struggles for Jake Locker at Washington had to do with the talent around him?
No, I think ultimately great quarterbacks make the talent around you, and they make the better. So, I think ultimately, the quarterback is always the difference in winning and losing in any league, and I think, some of the burden of responsibility has to fall on his shoulders.
What do you see as his outlook? He was, if we were talking a year ago, before he went back to University of Washington, we're talking about a possible first pick of the draft, and now we know his stock has taken a hit, but lately it's been gaining a little bit of stride. Where do you think he will ultimately end up?
I don't think he would ever have been the first pick in the draft. I think that's just people's talk, and I don't think it's real. I think once the evaluation process would have taken shape, people would have saw the deficiencies in his play, and he would have never been. These deficiencies just didn't creep up this year. They've been there. He's been a 55% completion passer most of his career, and that's always been a problem. So I think that's a little bit of the concern. It's not just creeped up this year. It's been there for a while.
Is there any interest out there for him? Are there some teams talking?
I think the Titans are very interested. He's going to have a private workout today for the Titans.
Okay.
He's going to have he'll have another workout. He's already worked out for the Minnesota Vikings. So there's a couple teams that are interested. I don't think the interest is as great as it would be. That he was going to be the first pick, as Mel Kiper once said, it was etched in stone. I don't think that's accurate.
I would also agree. Okay, and then I guess while we're on the college quarterbacks, is there any? You got Gabbert, you got Mallett, you got Cam Newton, of course, and you got Jake Locker and a few others. Are there any that you think are going to come in and make an immediate impact the same way as Sam Bradford or even a possible Matthew Stafford if he didn't have the injury issues?
Well, I think Blaine Gabbert has an opportunity, and I think Cam Newton has an opportunity to make an impact. I think they have to go to the right team and get into the right system and around them, and I think that ultimately will help, as he drives himself forward. But, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a collective group of players, and I think that, Newton can do some things uniquely that not a lot of people can do, and Gabbert's very accurate with the football, and I think if he goes to the right system, I think he can contribute right away.
Getting off the quarterback, are there players in the draft that you think will make a first-year impact, not just quarterbacks, but any?
Oh, I think Marcellus Darius will make an impact. He's a very talented player. I think he can easily make a very quick impact. I think Aldon Smith from Missouri can make an impact. I think Von Miller from Texas A&M can make an impact. I think when you look, I think Patrick Peterson will make an impact coming into the draft. So there's a lot of players. This is a good draft. There's a lot of blue-chip players in the draft, and I think they'll make an impact.
A lot of people, I just read today that Von Miller could possibly vault himself to the number 1 pick. Is there any weight in that?
That would surprise me. I don't see that. Von Miller's best suited for a 34 defense, and Carolina's always going to run a 4-3. So I don't think he'll get him up there. I mean, Carolina has to find a way to solve their quarterback issues at some point.
What do they do with Jimmy Clausen? Do they just write him off?
Well, I think Jimmy was disappointing. I think Jimmy's going to take some time to develop. So I'm not sure he's going to be, he's going to have to prove to them he can be in their plans. With his play, I don't think they're really convinced that he can do that. He's got to compete and see what goes forward.
I guess wrapping up the draft, when we're all said and done, what do you think? Who do you think we're going to look back at as a quarterback and say they had the best career?
Oh, I think Blaine Gabbert will have a really good career. I think he's a good player. I think Ryan Mallett will have a good career. I think there's too much scrutiny placed on Mallett. I think he's a really good player. I think he'll have a good career.
His off-the-field issues, are they a big issue in NFL circles, or is that just the media kind of hype thing?
I think some of it tends to get out of proportion. I think he's a good player. He's been in a good system. He's been coached hard, and he knows how to respond to coaching.
And then a quick question about Mark Ingram. Where does he stand? He was an awesome college player. He got injured, but he's got the toughness, he's got the size, and he's got a nice burst. But will it translate over to the NFL?
I think Mark Ingram is interesting because I don't see him being a blue chip player in the NFL. I think he's going to have to be a complimentary player. He's got some knee concerns. He's only carried the ball 14 times during his career per game, so you're going to have to establish him as more of a control type runner. Can he carry it 20 times? He's not really that much of part of the passing game. So I think he's one of those players that runs with the ball effectively, but not all the time. And it's going to take a little bit of he's not going to be a blue chip player right away.
Is he benefiting from the fact that this is not the highest class of running backs that we've seen?
I think this is really a good class of running backs. I really do. I just don't think there's a first-round back. I think there's some guys in this running back class that can really. Mikel LaSure from Illinois is very good. Shane Vereen from Cal is very good. Daniel Thomas from Kansas State is very good. Stephen Ridley from LSU is good. So I think there's a lot of backs in here. There's not a back that we have on the tip of our tongue.
Okay, well, getting off of the draft to, I guess we'll say current and possible free agents. You got Nnamdi Asomugha. He's the big name. He's going to make a big splash depending on where he goes. But you also got guys that may not necessarily be free agents, but they may not be with their current team. You got Kevin Kolb, Vince Young, Carson Palmer, Terrell Owens even. What do you see as the free agent market or the current trade market?
Well, I just hope we get there. I think it's hard. I think Kevin Kolb's probably the one guy who's going to get traded that you could say. Donovan McNabb, I'm not sure of. But I think Kevin Kolb has probably the most interest of anybody, and I just hope we get to have an opportunity to get there. Understood. Do you think his landing spot, I personally am a Cardinals fan, so I hope that's where his landing spot is, but are there some other people, I've heard Seahawks, and are there other people looking at Kevin Kolb? I think a lot of teams are looking at him. I think they're comparing him to the quarterbacks in this draft, and I think that ultimately what happens in this draft will determine what happens with Kevin Kolb. And
your assessment of Kevin Kolb, is he a good quarterback that just wasn't as good as Michael Vick, or is he a quarterback that got the opportunity and still hasn't shown it yet?
I'm of the latter. I think he hasn't really shown that he's a true starter in the league, but I think he has to develop just like a lot of these guys in the draft. He has to stay in the pocket, be a little bit much better with the ball in the pocket, and handle that.
The Carson Palmer situation, which has gotten out of hand, we've seen people in Cincinnati say they want out of Cincinnati, and it's only gotten them to Cincinnati. Is that going to be the case with Carson Palmer?
I think Carson Palmer is it's not going to happen for him. I think he's not going to get traded. I don't believe he will. And I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get out of Cincinnati.
Do you think he comes back and plays football?
If he wants to play, he says he's going to retire, and I think the Bengals are going to take him at his word that he's going to retire.
The big name, Nnamdi Asomugha. Is he out of Oakland? Is he?
Oh, he's definitely out of Oakland. He won't be back in Oakland.
Okay.
There's no question he won't be back. So,
are there some names out there?
Oh, I think he's going to get a lot of action. I think Philadelphia. I could see Green Bay. I could see a lot of teams. I think Nnamdi wants to go somewhere where he can win and taste victory as opposed to getting paid. He's been paid a lot of money over his career, and I think he's looking more for the opportunity to get paid.
After watching Revis sign that contract, do you think that will be? I mean, he's going to be paid well, but last year he was under that 3-year, $45 million contract in Oakland. Do you think he'll want the best of both worlds, I guess, or?
No, I think he'll take the best deal he can get. I think he wants to go somewhere where he can win. I think that's ultimately important.
Another team that brought up as a possibility is Dallas. Is that a possibility for them to pick up Nnamdi Asomugha?
Yeah, I think no, Dallas won't be in it. I think the cap, they have a lot of situations where they can't really handle that. So I'm not sure that would be something that they could handle with their money and their financial situation right now.
We'll change gears. This being a fantasy football website, do you play fantasy football at all?
No, I don't. My two sons do, but I don't. I don't have enough time.
I hear
you. I like to, but I try to keep up with it, but I don't have enough time to do it.
Gotcha. If there are some advice you could give your sons and to all the fantasy guys out there, we're just going to go ahead and assume that we'll have a season in 2011. Are there some players that are going to break out a la Arian Foster or Mike Wallace that,
Oh, I wish I could tell you that. I don't know that yet. I think I have to kind of look at the league. I think it's a little hard right now because we haven't had free agency.
Oh, gotcha.
So I think it's hard to know exactly where we're going there.
A couple quick questions. We've had a running discussion on the site. The first one is Julio Jones or AJ Green. Where do you stand on that?
I prefer Julio. I think he's got the power. I think he's really a good player. So I like Julio right now.